as of right now, to bring our first guest on. We've talked to him plenty, and we're always happy to talk to him when firearms are involved. He is the author of Good Gun, Bad Guy and Good Gun, Bad Guy 2. Dan Wos joining us this morning. Dan, great to have you back. How are you?
Hey, KB, great to be on your show again, and I love coming on your show because you speak the truth, and Missouri is lucky to have you.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that, and we're lucky to have an opportunity to talk with you. And right out of the box, of course, this is going to be a big election year, and we know that sometimes what you hear up front isn't always what is actually going on behind the scenes. And case in point, you sent me a great article from Great American Republic, greatamericanrepublic.com, if folks would like to look this up, a secretly recorded video of a Democratic congressional candidate, Tedra Cobb, exposing her true intentions. I think she was talking about assault weapons and a ban on assault weapons, and she really didn't want to say a whole lot when the microphones were on, but behind the scenes, she kind of let people know exactly how she felt about a ban on assault weapons, but was afraid to say anything because she thought it might hinder her chances of being elected. And how often do we hear things like that, or things that we know of anyway, Dan?
Well, first of all, these anti-gun knuckleheads don't know the first thing about guns, and they don't know what an assault weapon is. They have multiple different definitions of assault weapons. So that's just another whole story that we could talk about later. But this particular woman, Tedra Cobb, is running for Congress. She's the Democrat running for Congress for the New York District, 21st District. This happens to be my district where I live, but that's not why I'm talking about this. This applies to everyone across the country. It's just coincidentally my district, and she's running against Elise Stefanik, who is the youngest woman in Congress. Now, I know Elise. I've talked to her a few times, and she seems to be a very honorable, very honest person. She's the Republican that's in Congress right now. So what happens is Tedra Cobb talks to. She was specifically instructed by Moms Demand Action and some of these anti-gun groups to specifically not tell her true feelings on what she thinks about these so-called assault weapons. Well, she's talking to a teenage gun control group, and she uses the quote, "They're very fearful of gun violence." You know, but of course, these kids are scared of all sorts of things because that's the way we're programming them and conditioning to be. So anyway, she's talking to these kids, and someone catches her on their cell phone, and she doesn't know about it. When she says, "Well, I don't, you know, I would like to." She was asked about assault weapons bans, and she said, yes, she definitely supports an assault weapons ban. But she says, if I say that in public, I won't win. And Moms Demand Action has instructed me, you know, not to say anything about assault weapons ban. So this is the total hypocrisy. This woman is just a two-faced liar. She should never be considered to represent the people of New York. And this is one of those great situations where she actually got caught on audio. And so the ironic thing here is she had just previously, before she went and did this, she just signed a thing that's it was a no lies pledge. And what she did was she put out a tweet that said, I have run my campaign with honesty and integrity from the very beginning, and that won't change now. And she's trying to present herself as this honest, you know, politician. And the idea was to try to make Elise Stefanik look dishonest. So she signs this no lies pledge. And then she turns around and she literally lies, and she gets caught on tape. And so it's a perfect example of the hypocrisy and the anti-gun liars that are out there.
Well, what's interesting about this is you have to wonder how many other folks are receiving their instructions, as is the case, from other organizations to keep it on the down low and not to say anything, not to even slightly admit that they have any idea, or they have an idea, but they don't have any a willingness to want to say that, we don't agree with assault weapons. We want to ban assault weapons and try to keep it on the down low just to get elected. And then I guess once they find themselves in office, then all bets are off. And then they start going after assault weapons and talking gun control and then trying to get all these people like these young kids involved in the conversation as well.
Well, that's one thing, is that the kids they're doing everything they can to scare the hell out of these kids. And, the kids are scared because, first of all, they're kept from any gun knowledge. The idea here is that they keep the kids away from learning. They don't want them to go to the range. They don't want to teach this stuff in schools. They don't want to talk about guns. And any talk that they do about guns, they want it to be vicious and very, full of angry rhetoric and fearful propaganda, because they really don't want the kids to learn. Because once these kids learn about guns and actually go to the range with their parents or whoever, they actually find out that, with proper training, guns are good. Guns are fun. And they don't want that to happen. So that's a big part of this whole thing, is to teach the kids to be fearful and also teach them to be angry and hateful toward gun owners. It creates that fear and hate combination creates really good anti-gun warriors.
Well, the interesting thing about this is you have to really wonder how many other people are like this, how many other legislators are out there like this, and whether or not, again, they're just keeping all of the conversation on the down low, hoping that nobody comes across what they did with this particular woman. And now that the cat is out of the bag, so to speak, I wonder if this is going to change her stance, if she's going to actually come out and say anything, or if she is going to continue to just keep it on the down low, deny that, maybe she is indeed against assault weapons. She wants to see a ban on assault weapons. And as I said earlier, the politicians that are running for election, maybe even re-election in some cases, they understand the conversation. They figure out what the heck is going on, and so they just want to keep it down. And if asked, I guess that's only the real way to find out when you get them in a public setting, Dan. Ask them flat out, and find out exactly how they feel.
Yeah, and I think with Democrats, you can pretty much assume that most of them, the anti-gun ideology is kind of baked in. So it's hard to believe any Democrats when they talk about gun laws, gun restrictions, and things like that, and some Republicans too, for that matter. But there's a bit of good news if you read between the lines in this stuff. Just the idea that this Tedra Cobb recognized that she won't win if she says she's for an assault weapons ban tells me that the majority of people, are for the Second Amendment. So behind this whole thing, there's this little message that says, they know what they're doing is not helpful and it won't gain votes. So that tells me that the majority of people do support our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and these shysters, they know it.
Well, I think we start to see this definitely in the numbers, and by the numbers I mean the amount of gun sales that we're hearing about in this day and age, and those numbers continue to go up when all of this is going on around us, like the various shootings. But it's the politicians who play the most integral role in all of this, and getting them to come up and come out and truly let us know how they feel about firearms, if they are for gun control, if they are for making sure that people can enjoy their Second Amendment rights. That's really what we want to know. And so I would challenge anybody, anytime, who goes to a town hall or someplace where a candidate is going to be speaking, to get that candidate to commit one way or the other, so you know. And again, obviously, some of these candidates are so afraid of even talking about guns, period, that They just try to avoid it altogether, and therefore they're more concerned about getting elected than they are about certain issues. And you say, well, you can see the importance of guns in our society in this day and age because politicians are afraid to talk about them and talk about them openly. I would say a lot of these folks may have another agenda, that they don't talk about them or they try to keep them on the down low as much as possible. And then if they get elected, that's when we start to hear them talk more about gun violence or sitting down and having a common sense conversation about gun laws and things like that. So it's really listening closely to their speak and what they say and how they say it and calling them out on these sorts of things.
Well, and one thing that I'd like to point out is that, these Democrat politicians are really shackled by the radicals right now, and because the radicals in their party are so loud and so obnoxious that they have to appeal to them, because when it comes to, with respect to the media, it's all about the radical Democrat movement. With all the different causes, we could talk about all their radical causes all day long, but they have to appeal to those people because that's where the media is focused right now. So when I say they're shackled by the radicals, they really are. And when the truth comes out, they know that those radicals, all the anti-gun radicals and all the sexism radicals and all those groups, they know that they need more than just their votes. So they have to play both sides of the fence, and this is where they get caught.
9:25 is our time. Our guest is Dan Wos, the author of Good Gun, Bad Guy and Good Gun, Bad Guy 2. Dan, we need to step aside and take a quick break. We'll come back and talk about something that's very interesting and something that I wonder if a lot of people know about. DIY guns, do-it-yourself guns, and a very interesting story that has developed, actually a story that's been going on for a number of years, I think all the way back to about 2013. And the way that this has kind of changed the conversation as we know it about do-it-yourself. It's 9:26. You are listening to the Morning Magazine on KRMS.
Bringing the pages of Entrepreneur Magazine to life, listen to Entrepreneur Radio. Entrepreneur Radio chronicles the fascinating world of entrepreneurship, providing news, advice, and inspiration that you need to lead a growing company. Listen for Entrepreneur Radio on News Talk KRMS Saturdays at 1. Join Alan Taylor and guests each week as they tell their stories of challenges and success. Entrepreneur Radio Saturdays at 1 on News Talk KRMS. Sponsored in part by Lake of the Ozarks SCORE chapter. Contact Bruce Mitchell at lakeoftheozarkscore.org.
A strong work ethic, honesty, decency, standing with the good word. Those are rural values. They built this country. They made Justin Brown. A full-time farmer, Justin Brown's been content with focusing on his crops, his livestock, and supporting his family. Politics and the swamp that is Jefferson City seemed a world away until it wasn't. Justin Brown knows our rural values are under assault. Prayer is being outlawed. Politicians are siding with flag protesters. Illegal immigrants want extra rights. And it seems Jefferson City is broken and dysfunctional. As the swamp deepens, good people drown. Rural values fade. That's why Justin Brown is running for state senate. He'll bring rural values to Jefferson City, like defending our Second Amendment rights, protecting life, fighting wasteful spending, and supporting law enforcement. Politicians have failed us. Rural values never have. Justin Brown, conservative. Grit for State Senate.
Paid for by Team Justin Brown, Dennett Sherrill Treasurer.
Owning a small business means I'm passionate about what I do. I work hard for my money, and I know how important it is to find the right partners. That's why I trust Nationwide Insurance with my business's insurance needs.
Golden Rule Insurance with 8 locations serving Missouri since 1956. Ask for a free coverage comparison to make sure your personal and commercial policies are best for you. Golden Rule Insurance, your local nationwide agency in Osage Beach.
Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
Coverage you need, people you trust.
Did you know that Big O Tires sells most major brands? Well, we do, and at a huge savings to you. Brands like Michelin, BF Goodrich, Goodyear, Nitto, and Cooper. Right now, you can get savings of up to $210 on select sets of Goodyear tires. Goodyear, original equipment on a large percentage of new vehicles. The official tire of NASCAR, and savings of up to $210 on a set makes this deal impossible to pass up. Get tires, service, straight talk, and major brands of tires from Big O Tires.
Our Congressman, Blaine Luetkemeyer, is a leader for the change America needs.
Finally, with a president who works with us, we took immediate steps to jumpstart the economy. We cut job-killing taxes, eradicated red tape, and senseless government regulations.
The stunning turnaround happening in the economy proves Blaine was right.
Businesses are doing what we said they would. They're hiring more people and paying them better. It's a rising tide lifting American families.
Blaine Luetkemeyer never forgets America's true source of power.
The greatness of our country is found in its people. The government doesn't make us great. The people make America great. The people, our shared values, independence, traditions, optimism, and commitment to leaving a better world for our kids and grandkids, that's the foundation for America's best possible future.
Blaine Luetkemeyer is endorsed by Missouri Right to Life and A+ rated by the NRA.
I'm Blaine Luetkemeyer, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Blaine for Congress.
News, sports, weather. Hear it first, right here.
I made the switch. News Talk, KRMS.
9:29 is our time. Thanks for joining us. Glad to have you on this gorgeous Friday morning, 70 degrees, partly cloudy sky. Dan Wos is our guest, and of course we talk to Dan about once a month or so to let folks know what's going on with issues involving firearms and your rights. And Dan, let me ask you a question before we pick up and get back into our conversation here. Are you going to be out appearing any place? Folks that might want to come see you. I don't know how often you get out to the Midwest or not, but do you have any appearances lined up anywhere? You going to be speaking? Any speaking engagements?
Well, I do have something coming up in Chicago in September, a big event, and I'm going back to Massachusetts to do some stuff. I'm doing radio all the time. I have a gun show up here in New York that I'll be at doing a book signing on September 1st, and that's in Albany, New York. It's with a organization called NEACA. They do gun shows, and I've gotten pretty involved with them. They're really good people. Constantly, you know what? Here's the thing, KB. Stuff pops up every week, and I'm always doing something, and a lot of times it's last minute. Whether it be shows or speaking events. I just got back from D.C. and I spoke at the Capitol for a Second Amendment rally and to support women's firearms competitors. There were 50 women firearm competitors from all over the country, from each state, and I spoke on the same stage as Dick Heller, which was a pretty big honor for me.
Yes.
And met Dick, and great guy. So it's constant. It's constantly. I'm constantly doing all sorts of things. I never thought that writing a book would result in so many different avenues and meeting so many different people going to so many different parts of the country. So yeah, all this stuff though is on my website, and I usually, if you follow me on Facebook or Twitter, I will always keep people updated on where I'm going to be and what radio stations and things I'm doing, where I'm talking. Thanks for asking.
You bet. Let's go to the phones. We've got a caller on the line. Oh, no, that's obviously, I guess that might have been a robocall, but I was going to offer folks the opportunity to direct a question or comment to Dan here this morning at 302-7000 or 877-330-1150. You can also email us live at krmsradio.com, and we are We're going to talk about a rather interesting topic, and this is from Wired magazine by the author Andy Greenberg, and I want to read just a little bit of this to give people a little background on something. It says, 5 years ago, 25-year-old radical libertarian Cody Wilson stood on a remote central Texas gun range and pulled the trigger on the world's first fully 3D printed gun. When, to his relief, his plastic invention fired a .380 caliber bullet into a berm of dirt without jamming or exploding in his hands, he drove back to Austin and uploaded the blueprints for the pistol to his website, defcad.com, defcad.com. He'd launched the site months earlier along with an anarchist video manifesto declaring that gun control would never be the same in an era when anyone can download and print their own firearm with a few clicks. In the days after that first test firing, his gun was downloaded more than 100,000 times. Wilson made the decision to go all in on the project, dropping out of law school at the University of Texas as if to confirm his belief that technology supersedes law. The law caught up. Less than a week later, Wilson received a letter from the U.S. State Department demanding that he take down his printable gun blueprints or face prosecution for violating federal export controls under an obscure set of U.S. regulations known as the International Trade in Arms Regulations. Wilson was accused of exporting weapons without a license, just as if he'd shipped his plastic gun to Mexico rather than put a digital version of it on the Internet. He took defcad.com offline, but his lawyer warned him that he still potentially faced millions of dollars in fines and years in prison simply for having made the file available to overseas downloads for a few days. I thought my life was over, Wilson says. Instead, Wilson has spent the last years on an unlikely project for an anarchist, not simply defying or skirting the law, but taking it to court and changing it. In doing so, he has not only defeated a legal threat to his own highly controversial gunsmithing project, he may have also unlocked a new era of digital DIY gun-making that further undermines gun control across the United States and around the world, another step toward Wilson's imagined future, where anyone can make, it says here, a deadly weapon at home with no government oversight. But there's a lot more to it than what the folks at Wired and that particular author are talking about, and I know you've had a chance to read this. Let me get your thoughts on what this guy is doing.
Well, what's going on here is when government wants to know what guns you have, and someone finds a way to have guns, not violate the Second Amendment, or not violate any laws, the government doesn't like that because they call them ghost guns, and these are guns where there's no serial number attached and filed with your local, state, or federal government. And this guy, Cody Wilson, has found a way to do that. And I guess my thought on the whole thing is, where in the Second Amendment does it say you have the right to keep and bear arms as long as the government has a list of all your guns and your address?
I have yet to see that part of it. I don't. I don't think there's any small print around the Second Amendment anywhere.
No. So what happens here is people can make their own guns. They can print their own guns through 3D digital printing. And what it does is it gives people the right to keep. It gives people the ability to exercise their right to keep and bear, but it cuts the government out. And although we've come to a place in our society, I don't know how this happened, but where it's almost common practice that you register your guns and the government knows where they are and what they are, although that's become common practice, that's not part of the Second Amendment. That doesn't belong in there, you know. And of course they'll use the excuse, well, it's to keep the guns out of bad hands and all this, but that doesn't that argument doesn't hold water because bad guys get their guns illegally anyway, and they always have. So the argument is great. I think Cody has presented something that's getting people talking about exercising our Second Amendment right without government interference.
Well, I see two different things here. I see unintended consequences with 3D printing, because when we started talking about 3D printing, I think we were talking about maybe producing like organs for people in order to help them. If, let's say, for example, somebody needed a kidney, somebody needed a liver, and they were concentrating on the 3D printer as a way to help these people out if an organ donor couldn't be found. Well, of course, 3D printers, basically the whole method behind them was so that they could print just about anything. And eventually somebody thought, and I'm sure maybe it had even been done before Cody Wilson did it, about manufacturing firearms. And so you go online, you put this blueprint up there, you show people how to do it, they get the equipment and everything necessary, and now they've got a firearm, and it doesn't have a serial number on it. There's no way for the government to track it. On the other hand, when you mention criminals, you know, a lot of times these people that, when guns fall into the wrong hands, Dan, we know that a lot of times serial numbers get filed off of guns. So this is not really something that's, a way for the government not to be able to track the firearm, which obviously they can't do that. But the point being is that they take the firearm, and if it has a serial number, they don't want the government to be able to track it, so they file the serial number off the gun in the first place. So, that's something I always used to joke about with a buddy of mine. He'd say, well, if you got a gun I can use, I said, well, you want me to file the serial number off for it? Joking, obviously. But the point being is that, here's another way to keep the government out of your business. And I'm sure that they're going to go, and they did go after this guy tooth and nail. I mean, they had him what they thought was on the ropes. He actually had a couple of lawyers, and the lawyers weren't doing the job that he wanted them to do. So he got rid of those two, and he got two more lawyers that were intent on helping him out and making this a reality. And the website that we mentioned, defcad.com, is one of a number of different websites that are out there where you can find these types of blueprints. But defcad.com did come down, but it's back up again because I was looking at it a little while ago.
Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing is that ultimately, it also said in the article that the State Department ultimately the case was the case was ruled in his favor, because what they would have been doing would be violating his right to keep and bear arms and his right to freely share information. So that was kind of an interesting thing. But the really interesting thing about this case is that our rights don't stop where technology continues. And I think that's the idea that the anti-gunners always have had, is they want the Second Amendment to stop with muskets. But they don't necessarily, consider things like freedom of speech. They're not limited to their quill pen or whatever they used back then. Now we have the internet.
All right.
And the thing is, our rights as people must evolve with our technology. You don't limit the rights of people and let the technology grow. It's like it would be great if our ethics and morals would also evolve with technology, but they don't. So it's a very tricky thing. But I like this case just because of that fact that we're watching technology grow, and some people don't want our rights to go along with that.
Well, 2 months ago, apparently 2 months ago from when this article was published, it says the Department of Justice quietly offered Wilson a settlement to end a lawsuit.
Yes.
He and his group of co-plaintiffs have pursued since 2015 against the United States government. Wilson and his team of lawyers focused their legal argument on a free speech claim. They pointed out that by forbidding Wilson from posting his 3D printable data, the State Department was not only violating his right to bear arms, but his right to freely share information. As you mentioned, by blurring the lines between a gun and a digital file, Wilson had also successfully blurred the lines between the Second Amendment and the First. It says here, and you get a little op-eddy in here with this guy when he's talking about this. It says here, if code is speech, the constitutional contradictions are evident, Wilson explained to Wired when he first launched the lawsuit in 2015. So What if this code is a gun? It says the Department of Justice's surprising settlement, confirmed in court documents earlier this month, essentially surrenders to that argument. It promises to change the export control rules surrounding any firearm below .50 caliber, with a few exceptions like fully automatic weapons and rare gun designs that use caseless ammunition, and move their regulation to the Commerce Department, which won't try to police technical data about the guns posted on the public internet. So, obviously, somebody, and I think it also shows something that people have to be aware of, and be aware of. Don't necessarily always give in when the government comes pounding on your door and threatens you. Take the opportunity. Right. Take the opportunity to get somebody, in this case a lawyer, to sit down and go over this information and find out exactly what rights the government has in this particular situation. This guy did this, and he's changed the face of the internet. He's changed the face of DIY as far as, making guns. And really now, I would imagine that the State Department, Justice Department, Commerce Department, whoever, is probably doing a little backpedaling to see what they can do to shut this off at the pass. Yeah, they probably are. And I just think it's a great thing, because it's opening up this new conversation, and it's recognizing the rights of people, and it's also shining a spotlight on how much the government wants to control not only what we do, say, think, and and all that stuff, but the guns that we own. And it's nobody's damn business, as far as I'm concerned. 9:44, Dan, we need to step aside and take another break. You are listening to The Morning Magazine on KRMS.
Hi, I'm Keith Frederick. As a state rep for the last 8 years, I've protected your Second Amendment and the unborn. I've worked to keep government small and taxes low. I've fought hard to protect your privacy and your property rights. And I sponsored the Article 5 Convention of States to rein in the federal government. I have a farm and a small business. You elect a senator for 4 years, so it should be someone the people trust. I've been elected by the people 4 times. On August 7th, please vote for me, Keith Frederick. Paid for by the Committee to Elect Dr. Frederick, Dale Bleckman, Treasurer.
You've heard your mechanic talk about how your car doesn't run well when the filter's dirty, right? Well, it's the same thing with your home's heating and cooling system. And B&B Heating and Cooling wants to make sure your home feels just right. So every Friday, it's Free Filter Friday at B&B Heating and Cooling. Once you sign up at bbhvac.com or stop by their location, you'll get 1 free filter once a month. For more info, go to bbhvac.com or freefilterfriday.com.
Just right, never felt so good. B&B Heating and Cooling.
The next time you call your internet or phone company, say these 3 letters: M-I-Z. If they don't respond with Z-O-U, then you can be sure they're not local. At Socket, 100% of our employees live here in Missouri. So you're not just our customers, you're our friends and neighbors. We bet the other guys can't say that. Socket. Calls answered locally. Techie stuff explained simply. Local phone, internet, and data. Socket.net.
This summer, expect the bugs around your house to be really bad. Plus, we've all heard about the special little present the mosquitoes have for us. Why worry about the yuck factor of bugs on your boat dock or in your yard when All American Pest Control can give them their walking papers? Call All American Pest today and live bug-free. Get the bugs out. Call All American Pest 346-4830, 346-4830, or visit them on the web, bugsfearus.com. That's bugsfearus.com.
Hi, this is Kendall Surdike, and I'm ready to party. Lake of the Ozarks, it's time for the biggest on-water Yamaha party in the world. This weekend, join Surdike Yamaha for Yamapalooza. This Friday, Saturday, and Sunday promises to be a great family weekend aboard a Yamaha from Surdike Yamaha in Osage Beach. Listen to these specials. Rent a Yamaha Wave Runner and get a second one free. Buy a new Yamaha VXR and get a free trailer, cover, and 2 life jackets. Buy a life jacket and get 1 free. Buy 2 spark plugs, get 2 free. Let me tell you, my dad is making crazy good deals for this Yamapalooza party. So whether you're riding your 30-year-old Yamaha that just won't quit or that new Yamaha Wave Runner or boat that you need to buy today, come join the Yamapalooza party that kicks into high gear at Dog Days on beautiful Lake of the Ozarks this Saturday. That's at Surdike Yamaha in Osage Beach. 48 years strong.
At Gary Surdike, you ride on our reputation. You ride on our reputation.
Why tune in to the morning show?
Fantastic.
I love it. It's awesome. News Talk KRMS. AM 1150, FM 97.5 and 103.3.
9:47 is our time. Chief Mark Amzinger from the Lake Ozark Fire Protection District will join me in the 10 o'clock hour to talk about a ballot issue they've got coming up. Also, Mindy Sales will be in the studio for our Feel Good Friday feature. Dan Wos is our guest. Of course, you can check out his books, Good Gun, Bad Guy, and Good Gun, Bad Guy 2. He's on the phone with us right now, as a matter of fact, and we enjoy having him with us. Your listeners, your followers, I want to send a shout-out to them if they are online listening to us streaming today at krmsradio.com. Thank you so much, and thanks for helping to promote this interview as well, Dan. So is there anything else we want to talk about here this morning and really give folks an idea of what's going on in this country? I just feel like there's so much that we need to touch on. Unfortunately, we only get about an hour to do it.
Yeah, well, there is a lot to talk about with respect to the gun conversation, because the anti-gunners are so active when it comes to their rhetoric and their propaganda and all their strategies and tactics and things. I guess one of the things that I've been talking a lot about is the different ideologies that we have in this country, the two very distinctively different ideologies from left to right. And, what I've noticed is that people on the left tend to want to live under a government-controlled society. They like their rules, regulations, and laws and restrictions because it takes away their personal responsibility. They don't have to be accountable to anything anymore. So they kind of go for that. They want more restrictions on just about everything. We talk about guns, but you also talk about speech. They want control on speech. When they can't get it legislatively, they use things like political correctness to implement that kind of control. They want the controlled environment as long as it suits them. Mm-hmm. But on the right, we have free-thinking people. We have conservatives who want to live in a free society. And that's the very distinctive difference. And I always say this, and it kind of makes the point, but people on the left, the average person on the left, the people you see in the grocery store, your neighbors, and maybe even some family members, they don't want to control you as much as they want to be controlled, because to them, that is safe.
Well, I think, unfortunately, in this day and age, and with a lot of people, we go through our daily lives and we're really not paying attention to what's going on in government. And sometimes, as you mentioned, people like that control because it's easy. It's allowing them to do what they want the way they want to do it. But they need to keep a very close eye on other things, because I think in this day and age, there are various litmus tests that are going on. People that are intentionally putting things out there to see how people will react to them. And then when they get that reaction, then they back up and they repackage it and they try to come in at another angle or with a different approach. And then people say, oh, well, yeah, that's not as bad as the first one. But indeed, it's right, as bad, if not worse. And one of the things that I was talking about, and we've talked about here locally, is PDMP, the Prescription Drug Monitoring Program. And one of the things that a lot of people have a scary feeling about is that PDMP will be used eventually to take people's firearms away, because essentially this program has been created. Missouri is the only state that has not adopted the PDMP through our state legislature, and they found an end-around way to do it by obtaining some funding from the Department of Justice, and then they're putting these cities around the state up to implementing ordinances for PDMP, which means they give up all the information wherever if you live in a particular area and you use a pharmacy in a particular city, and that pharmacy has a PDMP ordinance, all of that information goes to the St. Louis County Health Department, plus this third-party APRIS, which a lot of people aren't very clear about their role in all of this. But the whole thing is done under the guise of safety, that we don't want people abusing and overdosing and dying on opioids, and we don't want them doctor shopping. But, and somebody here locally said, that health and safety is more important than a person's individual privacy. And when we talked about that, I thought that would scare the daylights out of people. And I think maybe some people were. Other people were like, oh, well, whatever. They're looking out for us. They're taking care of us. But that's not the job of government. The point is, on the end around with all of this, is the fact that this PDMP, now they have all of your information on what you take. And people will say, the insurance company has it, this group has it, that group has it. But it's the fact that it's the individual's privacy. And we shouldn't just willingly give that up to say, oh, well, we don't want people who are on opioids to overdose, because a lot of times if they want to overdose, even if you try to put in some program, if you try to implement something to keep them from doing it, they're going to find a way to do it. While at the
they're going to do it anyway.
Exactly. Right. While at the same time, this information is now available. And let's say they wanted to go after, veterans. Or they wanted to go after people who take some sort of antidepressant drugs or something along those lines and say, well, we noticed that in checking your prescription records, you take this, and this. Maybe that's a good idea. Why you shouldn't have a firearm. You know what I'm talking about? So This is, under the guise of safety, something that is being done to promote this feeling of, we're trying to look out for you, we're worried about your safety and things like that, while at the same time doing an end around to use it down the road for other things. Oh, yeah, and you use the term guise of safety, and that's exactly it. And there are people that are ignorant to this stuff, and they don't care. And you're right about that. They will just as easily give away their rights and their freedom and their privacy for somebody else to take care of everything. And they just don't care, but they don't realize that when you give up responsibility for yourself, you're giving up your freedom. And there may come a day when we'll be very sorry that we did that. So we have patriots in this country who are fighting to not only preserve our rights, but to and tell them, what are you doing, dummy? You're giving away your privacy. You're giving away your rights like it's nothing. And so you pointed out a great thing with the PDMPs. I don't know a heck of a lot about the inner workings of that particular, but from what you just told me, it reflects that of the gun conversation and the way people so easily, accept these small little infringements because, well, it's not a big deal right now. Who cares? I don't need a bump stock. But that doesn't matter. It's the idea that those little infringements ultimately chew away at the edges of our Second Amendment right, and people can be real stupid, and we all need to pay attention because we all do it at some level. So we all need to pay attention to that stuff so we can preserve our rights for our kids and our grandkids. Well, if you give up liberty for a little bit of safety, you should get neither liberty nor safety, right? Isn't that close to the quote? Yeah, and ultimately you won't. You'll end up with nothing. Yeah, you'll end up with nothing. End. Yeah, right. So you're right. Dan Wos, we are up against the clock, sir, but as always, great conversation, and I look forward to getting you back in here. We'll try to keep it on time this next month, and then do it the third Monday of the month in the month of August, and get you back on track with us here. But as always, appreciate the time, appreciate the conversation. Again, remind folks that Dan is the author of Good Gun, Bad Guy and Good Gun, Bad Guy 2. And if you get an opportunity to hear him speak, definitely make an effort to get there and just kind of listen to see what he has to say. And if you like it, great. If not, well, listen a little closer. Hey, thanks a lot, pal. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you real soon. Thank you very much. That is Dan Wos, and we are News Talk KRMS. It's the morning magazine. Let's take a break, and when we come back, this should take us up to the top of the hour. My guests